Alrighty, it's Future Friday again, and we've got another midsize sedan coming at you. This is what the potential 2024 Hyundai Sonata will look like. Let's talk about it.
Now, before we hop into the exterior and talk about what we expect enhancement-wise in the exterior, then the interior, powertrain, etc., let's just talk about the Sonata in general. Now, there have been rumors that this Sonata might be discontinued. Hopefully not, because we do own a Sonata. If you're not familiar with the channel, we love our Sonata inline. But this current generation model came out in 2020, and it's about time for Hyundai to do a refresh on this, and we've seen some really strong renderings with this refresh with quite a few enhancements. So what we're going to be doing is just breaking down the exterior, interior, powertrain, potential pricing and trim level structure for this new 2024 model. So let's go ahead and get into that.
Now, as a brand, Hyundai is one of the more unpredictable when it comes to exterior designs. They come up with some really radical looks, and their chief designer talks extensively about trying to make their different models look different from each other. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing like some other brands. That being said, you still can make predictions about what designs will look like based on some of the current trends within the lineup. So, we have a really excellent rendering up here on the screen by Kolesa.ru. This is basically using some of the brand new design language that we're going to see on the upcoming Kona that's coming out in just a couple months, being kind of applied to this refreshed Sonata.
Now, this is just a rendering. This is not official, but this is what we expect. So we're going to start out with what we expect for the new design and then what possibly could be for the exterior, but this is what we think the 2024 Sonata will look like. Now, let's go ahead and break down some of the design elements. So up here in the front, you're going to notice pretty much a completely different look. We're not going to have the catfish grille that's on the current Sonata model. Those of you probably have known about it and really probably complained about it in the comment section down below. It's getting replaced by a new light bar up here in the front, which is something that we've seen on the confirmed Hyundai Kona model that is coming to the US, so that would make sense that they would put that on the Sonata as well. And then down here on the lower area, we're going to have a very aggressive grille. As you can see, we have a really cool texture going through here. It's going to be a little bit more squared off than what I would actually expect out of a sedan, and then we're going to have that separated headlight design over here on the side. It appears to have LED projector style headlights in this rendering as well, which would be a nice premium touch and a little bit of an upgrade over the current reflector LEDs that you get on most of the Sonata models.
Now, if we flip over to the current model, you'll see that that's very different from what we have, especially with the lighting. So the lighting is one of the most recognizable elements right now, because you have that daytime running light that goes all the way up the hood. That appears to be gone, but in exchange you get it all the way across the grille. So different types of designs.
Yeah, change vertical versus horizontal right. There.
But still very distinct lighting, which I'm happy to see would hopefully stick around. Now, if we go back to the render again, it looks like the artist is keeping a very similar looking wheel to the limited trim level. That's pretty much what I would expect.
I hope Hyundai keeps those wheels. I like the wheels that they currently offer on the Sonata.
So here's our potential rear end. Basically, it looks like they've kind of made things a little bit more sleek, a little less squared off. The built-in spoiler area, I think, is kind of a big change because it looks like they have made that a little bit more subtle. On our generation of the model, it's kind of tall and really clips in.
Nice lip up, yeah.
And particularly the LED taillights as well. We've got the full length effect that goes across there. It's got a really nice and smooth look to it now.
Yeah, and these are going to be a lot more slender. Our taillights kind of go in a bracket shape around, so it's gonna look a little bit more classy. I think that's kind of the thing with this new 2024 Sonata. Ours is very bold, aggressive in the current generation form. As you can see, if we spin this baby around, it's very bold. Like it's not everyone's cup of tea. This is going to be a little bit more classy and elegant, but we are keeping the same Sonata spelled out across the back, and we also have the same lower diffuser area with the right side exhaust pipes. My gosh, I wish Hyundai would change this and make them symmetrical. That would be really great for this refresh.
You get the inline, and then you'll get
I guess so.
Now, speaking of inline, the rendering doesn't just come out of nowhere. It does have some supporting evidence. So there has been some spy shots taken of really, really blurry photo. I'm assuming in Korea, of one being used in like an advertisement.
Yeah.
And I think we can get a sense that this general shape, especially of the front end design,
is going to be very similar
on the Sonata.
Yeah, I think this one is an inline right here, and then if we check out the rear, they did get a picture of the rear as well. I think this might actually be a little bit of a discrepancy from the rendering that we just looked at in the rear. It looks like the taillight actually might have a more similar design to the current Sonata that's out on the market than as compared to this rendering model. It looks a little bit more aggressive to me. But
that one's got the black spoiler, it
looks
like.
Yeah, this one does have, but this is the inline, it looks like, in this image, so I wouldn't be surprised if maybe Hyundai gives a more aggressive like taillight design for the inline model. And now let's move on to the what could be for this Sonata. Now, we mentioned that this Sonata is actually not really selling super well. I believe it was about 60,000 units last year, which is quite the fall from what it used to sell. The midsize sedan segment is actually shrinking in general, and this is unfortunately getting a little bit of the brunt of that. So what could be? I'd say maybe Hyundai will limit the trim levels for the 2024 model just to save costs. Maybe they'll offer just a little bit, maybe a high-end one, a middle trim, and then a lower-end one. Maybe they'll offer a calligraphy Sonata, though. I mean, on the opposite end, maybe they'll try and differentiate by making a more luxurious version of the Sonata that maybe has some crazy cool elements like what we see in like a Palisade calligraphy.
Now, when it comes to mid-cycle refreshes, we typically don't expect humongous changes to an interior. However, we do have some intel that there might be more substantial changes to the cabin of the Sonata than you might expect.
So we have this spy shot that someone caught the Sonata testing out, and due to their great zooming skills, we were able to discern that there is a bigger display inside of this cabin. So what that tells us is that Hyundai's actually going to try and do some interior changes for this refreshed model. So what we think it could look like is maybe like the Kona interior, where we have the larger dual display setup, so dual 12.3-inch displays connected into one to give it that more modern and fresh look, as opposed to a digital gauge cluster with a separated screen layout, like what we currently see. And here's a full image of the all-new Kona's interior. Now, keep in mind, this is fully confirmed for a U.S. market. I doubt we'll see a design as squared-off looking as this. It'll probably have a little bit more swoopiness to it, as it's a sedan as opposed to an SUV. But I'd say we have quite a few of the design elements that this new model has. Maybe we'll have this new steering wheel design. We might also have like a storage cubby over here on the side and some ambient lighting featured throughout the cabin.
Right, it'll probably be a combination between new design elements with some of the existing ones, of course, which look like that.
So what could be on the new Sonata's interior? Well, I'd say we might get some new interior colors, maybe like a blue color scheme that we've seen on some of their other more expensive products. One thing I do think could happen as well is that the electronic shifter that we see right here in the current gen, it might actually move to over here on the steering wheel, like what we've seen on the electric Hyundai models like the Ioniq 6 and Ioniq 5. I'm not sure if they will do that because, of course, the Sonata is going to be a gas-powered offering, but we could see that move, and that would free up more center console space for anything that you're going to need.
Right, and since Mason mentioned Ioniq 6, this would be a great time to plug that we're going to be checking out the Ioniq 6 very soon.
A few days.
Very, very soon. So stay tuned to this channel so you can see the latest Ioniq 6 and all of the cool features that that thing has.
Now, despite all that, we still don't expect that it's going to have wireless CarPlay or wireless Android Auto. They don't have that in any Hyundai, Kia, or Genesis product, which I really am hoping and praying they will eventually fix, but I doubt that we will see that on the 2024 Sonata.
Now let's move on to Powertrain. With this refresh, we're not expecting any huge changes, as it is just a refresh, and the Sonata already has a very extensive powertrain selection. For those of you not familiar, you actually have 4 different choices, including a hybrid and a high-power turbo model in the inline. This thing scoots.
And this is a Sonata. What?
Launch control. I bet you didn't think you'd ever say launch control and Hyundai Sonata in the same sentence. Alright, and there's a quick acceleration with this Sonata. But there is one thing that I think a lot of people have been wanting to see, and it seems like Hyundai might be offering it with the next generation. That is all-wheel drive. If you remember, the Kia K5, which is related to the Sonata, actually does have all-wheel drive already. It's had it for a few years, but the Sonata never had it. But based on this spy shot, they zoomed in on a tag on the window.
Yeah, so they zoomed in on a lot of different things, but one of the things that they zoomed in on was this tag. And if you notice down here, it says 2.5 GDI, which is their traditional, powertrain setup. But it has these letters right here, AWD, and we know what that means. That means all-wheel drive. So if this is indeed a Sonata, which we are pretty certain it is, that does mean that we will have all-wheel drive for the Sonata. Now, whether they choose to bring that to the U.S. or whatnot, I don't really know the specifics on that. But hopefully, they listen to customer feedback and will add all-wheel drive, because that's something that the vast majority of the segment now has at this point.
Now, would they add all-wheel drive to the inline? Probably not, but
I doubt it.
Probably not. That might just be too good. It would be threatening to Genesis, maybe. I don't know. But with all-wheel drive, it would be a lot of fun.
If so, they would really tempt me to get another one. Now, that's what we think will happen, but what could happen, theoretically, I guess they could add a Sonata in. I highly doubt that would ever occur, considering that it is a dying nameplate, that's for sure. The Sonata inline, I do think, could have maybe more horsepower for this refresh model, maybe 300 horsepower like we see in some of the Genesis products. Not a different engine or anything, but maybe different tuning can give it that extra 10 horsepower that we see in some of the Genesis models. Maybe we'll see a plug-in hybrid as well. I think that would be pretty cool. It'd be a very cool feature to have a plug-in hybrid midsize sedan. Maybe Hyundai will add some of their electric technology from the Ioniq 6 and make a really good plug-in hybrid. That could be a cool thing for the midsize sedan segment.
For our pricing expectation, in our professional opinion, of course we do review a lot of cars, we would say the price will probably increase about 5%, let's say.
Yeah.
It's a very competitive segment, so nobody really wants to be very different from their competitors. The Honda Accord just came out, the new one. Price went up a little bit. Maybe a new or redesigned Sonata will also bump the price up a little bit.
Yeah, I'd say here's the current building price, $25,250 is your base price. Say we might look at about $26,500 for the new base SE trim level, $35,125 for the current limited. I'd say $36,500 would be a reasonable expectation for this post-refresh model. Now, if they go to do crazier things, like add a calligraphy trim level, like we discussed earlier in the what could be section, we might see that price bump up to nearly $40,000, but they will have a lot of really cool features if they're going to push to that price point. As far as all-wheel drive, since we did mention that, these are all the front-wheel drive prices, so I'd expect if you want to add all-wheel drive to any of these trim levels, it would be about $1,700, which is what we see on the Kia K5, which of course is the sister vehicle to the Sonata.
Now, once again, none of this is, officially from Hyundai or anything. However, we do expect that this refresh would put it as a 2024 model year vehicle. That means that we would expect to see official details from Hyundai perhaps sometime this summer, just in a 2 or 3 months time, and then a release slotted for the fall of 2023.
And I think that would make a lot of sense because this midsize sedan segment is really heating up with the all-new Accord, an all-new Camry, which we've already shown you a video of what we think that will look like, if you want to check that out, if you haven't already. So there's going to be a lot of competition in this midsize sedan segment, so Hyundai's got to bring their A-game with this new Sonata. Now, if you want to stay in tune with all of the latest details about this 2024 Sonata, we, of course, will be covering that as soon as Hyundai releases some official information. So if you're not subscribed to the channel already, we would really appreciate that. All you have to do is just go to our channel and tap that lovely subscribe button. By doing so, that helps us have access to vehicles to show you all better content on the channel. And if you're already a subscriber, we really appreciate your support. By doing all the things that you do, you are able to make this possible. Also, if you haven't had the chance to check out our TikTok or Instagram pages, please go ahead and do that. And we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.